Welcome back, you night owls. Tonight we journey back to the twilight world of old Japan, to the floating world of Yoshiwara, and the tragic life of a woman known as an Oiran. We're not talking about a movie or a book, but a reality so stark it makes you want to pull your blankets a little tighter. This is a story of beauty and cruelty, of art and exploitation, a life that you, in your cosy bed, probably wouldn't survive for a week. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is, and we can all feel a little less alone in the dark. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're a girl, and your world is dirt. Not in a metaphorical, rough and tumble kind of way, but literally the hard, unforgiving earth of a small, struggling village in the Japanese countryside. The year is somewhere in the mid-18th century, and the rhythm of your life is dictated by the seasons, the sun, and the relentless cycle of poverty. Your name for now is simply what your family calls you. It's a name that belongs to the rice paddies and the worn wooden floor of your small hut. You know the chill of a winter morning that seeps through the thin walls, and the sticky, oppressive heat of a summer afternoon spent weeding fields. This is your reality, a reality shared by most of the people you know. Your hands are calloused not from a few hours of gardening, but from a lifetime of labour that began as soon as you could walk. Your parents work just as hard, maybe even harder, their backs bent in a permanent bow. You see the worry etched into their faces, a familiar map of stress and hunger. The meagre harvest is never quite enough. A bad year, a flood, a blight. Any of these can push a family to the brink, and your family is always teetering there. You don't have toys. Your fun is catching dragonflies or splashing in the stream with the other children, a brief escape from the constant gnawing sense of lack. You've heard the stories of the city, of Edo and its wealth, its shimmering lights and bustling streets, but it feels as distant as the moon. It's a place for others, for the lucky ones. One evening, you're sitting by the hearth, the fire casting dancing shadows on the walls. Your parents are speaking in low tones, a conversation you've overheard before, but this time the words are different. They talk about a debt, an unforgiving sum that has been growing like a weed. They talk about a broker, a man who visited the village a few days ago, his clothes too fine for this place, his smile too slick. He promised a way out, a solution. You don't fully understand the details, but you feel the weight of their sadness, the suffocating heaviness in the air. This isn't a negotiation, it's a surrender. The mainstream historical fact here is that a huge number of young girls were sold into service during this period, often due to insurmountable family debt, particularly in the aftermath of natural disasters or poor harvests. For many, it wasn't a choice but a desperate measure to ensure the survival of the rest of the family. A few days later, the broker returns. You're told to put on your best kimono, a worn but clean one that's reserved for festivals. It feels strange, ceremonial. You see the tears welling in your mother's eyes, and your father won't meet your gaze. They are not cruel people. They are simply out of options. You're a commodity, a debt settled in flesh and blood. You're a sacrifice. The broker, a man with a surprisingly gentle voice for all his grim purpose, tells you that you will have a better life now, that you will live in a grand house and wear beautiful... Of course, you're just a child, and you want to believe him. You have no idea of the bargain being struck, of the full price that will be paid over the coming years. The quirkier historical tidbit, and one that gives you a little chill, is that in some cases these brokers would carry small, beautifully painted dolls with them. They would give a doll to a little girl, promising that she would get to play with many more dolls just like it in her new home, a small, innocent lie to ease the transition and make the girl more compliant. Imagine holding that little wooden doll, its painted face smiling, a false promise in your small hand, as you leave your home forever. Historians still argue whether these girls truly understood the long-term consequences of what was happening to them. Were they completely innocent, or did they have some vague, chilling premonition? For you, in this moment, it's all just a blur of emotions, fear, confusion, and a strange sense of excitement about the unknown. You're leaving a world of scarcity for one of promised plenty. It must be better, right? You cling to your mother's hand one last time, her touch feeling impossibly fragile, and you're led away. You don't look back, not because you're too brave, but because you're too scared of what you'll see. You walk toward a new life, a life you didn't choose and a life you don't yet understand. You carry your new doll and a small, pitiful bundle of your belongings. The sun begins to set, casting long, purple shadows across the fields you've known your whole life. You're a small figure walking away from everything familiar toward a destination that has no name yet. All you know is that you're going somewhere, far away from the dirt and the hunger. Your journey has begun, and it will not be an easy one. The air cools, and you feel a strange mix of emptiness and the nervous anticipation of a child on a very long journey. You haven't even left the village roads, but your old life is already a memory. The journey from your quiet village feels like a lifetime. You trudge along dusty roads, your small hand held firmly by the brokers. The world unfurls around you in a blur of unfamiliar sights and sounds. The soft, familiar mud of your village is replaced by hard-packed earth, and eventually the cobbled paths of larger towns. Your feet, accustomed to the gentle give of soil, ache with every step. The broker is a man of few words, but he's not unkind. He buys you small rice cakes from a roadside vendor and a sip of cool water from a communal well. You watch the people you pass, merchants with bundles on their backs, samurai with 2 swords at their hips, farmers leading ox carts, and you feel utterly invisible, a ghost walking through their busy world. Days bleed into nights, and you sleep huddled under a thin blanket in smoky inns. The scent of straw mats and other travellers filling your dreams. You're a child, and the immensity of the world is both terrifying and exhilarating. You're seeing things you've only ever heard whispered about. Mountains that scrape the sky, rivers so wide you can't see the other side, and a sea that hisses and roars against a rocky shore. The quirky historical tidbit here is that many of these journeys would take weeks, sometimes months on foot. Travel was slow, and the infrastructure, while impressive for the time, was still challenging. Imagine being a child and walking that far, your entire life reduced to the rhythm of your own footsteps. Eventually the landscape begins to change. The open fields and scattered villages give way to more and more houses, all clustered together in a dense, sprawling mass. You can hear the distant hum of 1,000 voices, the clatter of wooden sandals on planks, the shouts of vendors. This is Edo, the great capital, and it is a marvel. It's a city of 1,000,000 souls, a vibrant, chaotic organism humming with life. The sheer scale of it is overwhelming. Your little village could fit inside one of its many districts 100 times over. You and the broker weave through a maze of narrow streets, dodging carts and people. The smells are different here. A mix of roasting fish, fermented soybeans, human sweat, and something else. A perfume you can't quite place, exotic and sweet. You see people dressed in silks and fine cottons, their faces painted white, their hair in elaborate styles you've never seen before. This must be the life the broker promised you. This must be the beginning of your new, better future. The mainstream historical fact is that Yoshiwara, the licensed pleasure quarter, was not actually in the centre of Edo. It was located on the outskirts, a self-contained city within a city, surrounded by moats and walls. The shogun's government established it to control the city's prostitution and keep it contained. You are headed for this specific sanctioned district, a place of carefully managed pleasure and equally managed pain. After what feels like an eternity of walking, you stop before a great gate. It's not a simple wooden gate like the ones in your village, but a towering, ornate structure known as the Omon, the Great Gate. It's the only way in and out of Yoshiwara. You can hear music from inside, a distant melancholic tune played on a shamisen. The air smells sweeter here, more fragrant. It's as if you are crossing a threshold into another world entirely, a world that promises to be a feast for the senses. Historians still argue whether the Omon was meant to protect the women inside from the outside world, or to keep them from escaping. Was it a shield or a cage? For you, a small, weary girl standing before it, it looks like a gateway to a dream. The sheer spectacle of the gate and the surrounding walls gives it a sense of importance and exclusivity, a clear demarcation from the ordinary world. The men standing guard are not soldiers but men of the quarter, and their watchful eyes seem to size you up, not with malice, but with a practised, calculating gaze. As you pass through the gate, the world transforms completely. The streets are wider and meticulously clean. The houses are not simple, rough-hewn buildings, but grand, multi-storied structures with intricate carvings and elegant lattice windows. You see women standing behind these windows, their faces powdered a ghostly white, their lips painted a startling red. They're impossibly beautiful, like living dolls. They look down at the street with an expression you can't read, a mix of boredom, longing, and something cold and distant you've never seen before. The broker leads you deeper into this new world, past tea houses and shops selling extravagant goods. You're overwhelmed by the colour, the noise, the sheer opulence of it all. This is not just a place to live. It's a performance, a stage on which everyone plays a part. You're a backstage hand, a tiny, insignificant bit player in a massive ongoing production. You can't help but feel a flicker of wonder, a small innocent joy at the beauty of it all, a memory of your old life already fading like a dream. Remember that simple feeling of splashing in a stream? That feels like a lifetime ago now. The broker stops at a particularly large, imposing house. It's an okia, a courtesan house. The name is etched on a wooden plaque by the door. He speaks to a woman who emerges to greet him, a woman with a severe face and a tightly wound hairstyle. She is the okasan or okia mother, the mistress of the house. You can tell by the way the broker bows deeply that she is a person of great importance here. She looks at you, not with kindness or cruelty, but with the same calculating gaze you saw at the gate. Her eyes scan you from head to toe, assessing your value, your potential. It feels like you are a horse being bought, your teeth and gait being examined. She asks you your age. You tell her you're 7. She nods slowly, a small, satisfied smirk playing on her lips. She has just acquired a long-term investment. A very, very long-term investment. She will feed you, clothe you, and teach you, and every penny of it will be tallied and added to the debt you owe her. You're a debt slave, and you don't even know it yet. For now, all you see is a new, clean house, and the promise of a future that's not filled with hunger. The broker gives you a final pat on the head, receives his payment, and disappears back through the gate, leaving you alone in this strange, beautiful, and terrible new world. The door closes behind you with a soft click, and the sound echoes in your ears. It is the sound of a lock turning. The door closes behind you with a decisive click, a sound that seals you inside this new, opulent prison. You stand in the entryway, a tiny, wide-eyed girl from the country, clutching your small bundle of belongings. The air inside the house is thick with the scent of incense, expensive oils, and a subtle, musky perfume. The floors are polished wood, so clean you can see your reflection, a smudge of a person in a worn kimono. The woman who met you at the door, the okasan or house mother, leads you down a hallway. She walks with a straight back and a rustle of silk, her silence more intimidating than any shouting could be. You're taken to a small spare room in the back of the house. It's nothing like the fancy rooms you glimpsed in the front, but it's still cleaner and warmer than your old home. There's a mat on the floor for sleeping and a low chest for your things. The okasan tells you, in a voice that is not unkind but holds no warmth, that this is your new home. She gives you a new name, a delicate floral name that sounds foreign on your tongue. Your old name, the name that belonged to the rice fields and your family, is now a thing of the past. You are a new person, born into a new life. This act of renaming is a crucial part of the process, a symbolic severing of ties to your old identity. It's a mainstream historical fact that almost all girls entering Yoshiwara were given new, often poetic names to mark their transition into the floating world. You are no longer your parents' child. You are a commodity belonging to this house. The quirkier historical tidbit is that these new names were often chosen to reflect a certain house tradition, like a series of flower names or bird names. It wasn't a choice, it was a brand. Imagine being given a name like Little Cherry Blossom or Gentle Willow. It sounds beautiful, doesn't it? But it's a beautiful name for a cage. It's the first step in a long process of dehumanization, where your identity is stripped away and replaced with a performative persona. Historians still argue whether this renaming ritual was a deliberate psychological tool to make the girls forget their pasts, or simply a practical measure to avoid using their real names for discretion. For you, the girl standing in that quiet room, it feels like losing a piece of yourself, a small ache in your chest where your old name used to be. Your new life begins immediately. You're a kamuro, a child apprentice. Your days are no longer filled with chores in the fields, but with a new set of tasks. You learn how to run errands, to clean and tidy the house, to serve tea and meals to the senior courtesans who live there. These women are like goddesses, impossibly beautiful, wrapped in layers of silk and poise. You watch them, mesmerized, as they laugh and chat, their movements graceful and deliberate. You see the elaborate kimonos, the intricate hairstyles, the makeup that transforms their faces into porcelain masks. You're a shadow, an observer, running to fetch things, to carry messages, to be seen but not heard. Your life is structured by strict rules. You must be quiet, obedient, and diligent. Your mistakes are met not with anger, but with a quiet, steely disappointment that feels far worse. The Okusan oversees everything with an unwavering eye. She is the keeper of the rules, the matriarch of this floating world family. She is both your caretaker and your jailer. She feeds you, clothes you, and ensures you're safe from the worst of the dangers, but she is also the one who holds your debt, a constantly growing number that you have no hope of ever paying back. Your training is not just about domestic tasks. You also begin the long and rigorous process of becoming a proper courtesan. You're taught how to walk with a specific shuffling gait, how to sit with your back perfectly straight, and how to pour tea with a delicate precision. These are not simple movements. They are an entire code of conduct. The way you carry yourself, the way you use your hands, it all communicates a sense of refinement and elegance that is expected in this world. This is not just a job, it is an art form. Remember the dirt of your village. It's a distant memory now. You live in a world of polished surfaces, but you're still just a child, and your heart still longs for the feel of that earth between your toes. One of the light-hearted jokes here is how you might find yourself instinctively trying to wipe away a speck of dust that isn't there, a lingering habit from your old life that earns you a gentle corrective tap on the hand from a senior courtesan. It's a moment of a country girl trying to fit into a silken sack world. You also start to learn the more scholarly arts. You learn the basics of playing the shamisen, a 3-stringed instrument whose plaintive sound you now hear every day. Your fingers are clumsy and your hands are small, but you're expected to practice for hours. You're taught how to read and write, not just the simple script, but the more complex characters used for poetry and letters. This is not for pleasure. It is to make you a more valuable commodity, a woman of refined culture who can captivate the most elite patrons. The focus on intellectual and artistic training for the highest-ranking courtesans is a defining feature of the Oiran's world, a key difference between them and the lower-ranking women. They were expected to be cultured conversationalists and entertainers, not just performers of a physical service. Your nights are short and your days are long. You fall asleep to the distant, mournful strains of a shamisen and wake to the bustle of the house. You watch the senior courtesans prepare for their evening appointments, a spectacle of powder, paint, and carefully arranged kimonos. You're a child watching a play, completely unaware of the tragedies being performed behind the curtain. You're at the bottom of the ladder, a little apprentice with a new name and a destiny you cannot yet comprehend. Your life as a Kamuro is a strange paradoxical blend of drudgery and observation. You're at the bottom of the hierarchy, a living, breathing dollhouse helper. Your days are an endless cycle of fetching and carrying, of polishing lacquerware and sweeping tatami mats. You learn to move silently, to anticipate needs before they are voiced. The house is a machine, and you are a tiny, essential cog in its intricate workings. You've long since lost the calluses from your village life, replaced by the soft skin of a girl who no longer works with the earth. But now the ache in your feet is from long hours on polished floors, your back sore from a constant polite bow. The most valuable thing you do is watch. You're a silent witness to the lives of the senior courtesans. They are the suns around which your small world revolves. You see them wake, their faces already composed and serene, their movements deliberate. You watch their attendants help them with their elaborate hair, a process that can take hours. You see them paint their faces a ghostly white with lead-based powder, and historians still argue whether the women knew about the slow toxic effects of this cosmetic. It was a trade-off, beauty for a slow internal decay. Remember that feeling of wonder you had when you first saw them, those living dolls. Now you're seeing the painful reality of becoming one. You serve them tea and meals, and you learn to read their moods. Some are kind, offering you a sweet treat or a gentle word. Others are distant, seeing you as nothing more than a part of the scenery. The quirkier historical tidbit is that the girls at this level, the Kamuro, would often be given a small amount of money as a sort of allowance, which they could use to buy snacks or small toys from a street vendor. This tiny taste of freedom, of having your own money, was a rare and precious thing in a life where everything else was controlled. Your education is a constant presence. You're not only learning the domestic arts, but the refined ones as well. Your fingers are starting to get the hang of the shamisen, and you can now pluck a simple tune without too much fumbling. You practice your calligraphy, the brush feeling more natural in your hand each day. The strokes must be precise, the lines elegant. You are learning the art of the perfect gesture, of turning every movement into a beautiful performance. This is the mainstream historical fact that separates the Oiran and her apprentices from lower-ranking prostitutes. They were trained as cultural ambassadors, as artists and poets, not just as purveyors of a service. The expectation was that you could hold an intelligent conversation with a high-ranking official or a wealthy merchant, not just entertain them in a more base way. You're also learning the complex rules of social etiquette in this world. You learn the proper way to address a client, the subtle hierarchy of the different courtesans, and the unwritten rules of interaction. The Okasan is your primary teacher, a stern and unforgiving instructor. She sees you not as a child, but as a future investment, and her goal is to make that investment as profitable as possible. She corrects your posture, your speech, your every move. She is moulding you into a new person, a person of value in this floating world. One of the light jokes, one you'll hear the senior courtesans share, is about a foolish client who mistakes a Kamuro for a courtesan. They'll laugh at his ignorance, at his inability to tell the difference between a high-end investment and a child helper. The joke, of course, is on him, but you feel a little of that shame, a constant reminder of your place. Your days are punctuated by the arrival of clients. You see them come in, men of all types, from wealthy merchants to samurai. You are a ghost, a tiny presence who serves them tea or helps a courtesan with a final touch of makeup before she meets them. You see the elaborate rituals of their meetings, the bowing, the exchange of compliments, the endless formalities. These are not simple transactions. They are a delicate dance of power and pleasure. You are a fly on the wall, watching a world you are being groomed to enter, but cannot yet comprehend. You remember the quiet of your village, the soft dirt under your feet, the sound of crickets in the evening. Here the nights are filled with music, laughter, and the distant sounds of the city. You miss the simplicity of your old life, but you also feel a strange pull toward this new, glittering one. It's a world of beautiful things, of silk and gold and perfume, a world of elegance that feels a universe away from the poverty you came from. You are a Kamuro now, a little assistant, a sponge absorbing the world around you. You are learning the first steps of a very long and very difficult dance. The Okasan tells you that soon you will graduate from this role. Soon you will become a Shinzo and take on more serious responsibilities. The word sounds important, full of promise. It's the next rung on the ladder, the next stage in your transformation. You are a caterpillar, and this house is your cocoon, a place of forced transformation. You fall asleep on your mat, exhausted, but your mind whirring. You're no longer just a girl from the country. You're a girl with a new name, a new life, and a debt you don't even know the true amount of. You dream of silk kimonos and beautiful songs, of a world where you are the one being served, where you are the one with the perfect poise and the beautiful smile. You're a child, but you're already starting to think like a courtesan, your dreams shaped by the world you live in. Your old life is a ghost, and your new one is a reality you are slowly, painfully, coming to accept. The sound of the shamisen from a nearby room is your lullaby, a constant beautiful reminder of the path you're on. The days and nights of your childhood have blurred into a single seamless memory of diligent effort. You're no longer the little girl from the countryside, but a young adolescent, on the cusp of womanhood, known by your new name. You've graduated from the menial tasks of a Kamuro to the more formal role of a Shinzo, a senior apprentice. This new rank is an elevation, a signal that your training has progressed to a more serious stage. You've traded your simple kimono for a slightly more elaborate one, and your hair is now styled with a few ornamental pins. It's a subtle but significant change, a visual marker of your rising status within the Okiya. Your life is no longer just about observing, it's about actively participating in the elegant theatre of Yoshiwara. You're still an apprentice, but you're now a more visible one. You accompany the higher-ranking courtesans on their duties, learning the ropes from them directly. You are their shadow, their assistant, carrying their things and running their errands. but you are now doing so in the public eye. You get to see the floating world not just from behind the scenes, but from the front row. This is the mainstream historical fact that marked the transition from childhood apprentice to a more formal role. The Shinzo was an integral part of the courtesan's retinue and was being prepared for her own debut. Your education intensifies. The simple tunes you learned on the shamisen are now complex melodies that require skill and feeling. You spend hours practicing, your fingers calloused not from labour in the fields, but from the hard strings of the instrument. You are also taught how to sing and dance, each movement carefully choreographed, each note practiced until it is flawless. This isn't a hobby. It's a necessary part of your professional training, a skill that will one day make you a desirable companion. The quirkier historical tidbit is that the style of dance and music in Yoshiwara was often a distinct, refined form that was a far cry from the folk dances of your old village. It was an exclusive art form, a language of grace and elegance that only a select few were fluent in. You also delve deeper into the art of conversation and poetry. You're taught how to read and appreciate classical literature and how to compose short poems and elegant letters. This is perhaps the most important part of your training. The highest-ranking courtesans were not just beautiful, they were witty, intelligent, and cultured. They were expected to be a man's equal in conversation, to be able to talk about art, politics, and philosophy. It was this intellectual prowess that truly set them apart. You spend hours memorizing poems and practicing polite, clever exchanges. Historians still argue whether this intensive cultural education was a genuine appreciation for art or simply a marketing strategy to elevate the status of the courtesans and the quarter itself. Was it about beauty or about intellectual snobbery? For you, it's all just work, a beautiful, refined, and often exhausting kind of work. You find yourself enjoying the stories of old heroes and the rhythm of the poetry, a small part of you feeling a sense of pride in your growing abilities. You're also introduced to the complex world of the quarter's social hierarchy. You learn the different ranks of courtesans, from the lower-tier Yujo to the high-ranking Oiran. You learn how each house has its own ranking system and its own rules. The Okusan is your guide through this maze of unspoken rules and social cues. She teaches you who to respect, who to fear, and who to simply ignore. It's a delicate dance of power, and you're just learning the first steps. The stakes are high. A misstep could lead to a loss of face, a loss of income, and a stern reprimand. You spend a great deal of time with the Oiran of your house, a woman of breathtaking beauty and immense poise. She is the star of the show, the main event, and you are her devoted attendant. You watch her every move, from the way she arranges her kimono to the delicate curl of her hand as she sips sake. She's a woman of immense power within this small world, but you also see the cracks in her polished facade. You see the exhaustion in her eyes late at night, the quick, sharp movements she makes when she thinks no one is looking. Her life is a spectacle, a performance, and she is always on stage. You remember that a senior courtesan once joked that the difference between an apprentice and a full courtesan is that the apprentice gets to sleep through the night sometimes. It's a joke that holds a kernel of truth. Your nights are still your own, a rare and precious gift. You can still read, practice your calligraphy, or simply rest. This precious private time is something you know you will lose as you move up the ranks. It's a strange mix of wanting to succeed and secretly dreading the loss of your quiet hours. You are being trained to sell not just your body but an entire fantasy. The fantasy of a beautiful, cultured woman, a perfect companion who can make a man feel witty and important. You are being groomed to be the perfect hostess, the perfect entertainer. You're learning that in this world, appearance is everything, and a perfect illusion is more valuable than the truth. Your real feelings, your real thoughts, are to be kept hidden, tucked away like a secret. You're becoming a master of your own facade. The time you spend as a Shinzo is a crucial period of your life. It's the time when you're no longer a child, but not yet a woman. You're a bridge between two worlds, the past of your simple village life and the future of your professional one. You have shed your old skin and are growing into your new one. You have mastered many of the skills, but the emotional cost of it all is a lesson yet to be learned. You are an apprentice courtesan, and the stage is being set for your debut. You can feel it coming, a mix of excitement and a deep, chilling dread. The curtain is about to rise. The day of your debut as a Yujo, or apprentice courtesan, arrives with a quiet sense of ceremony. You've spent years preparing for this moment, and yet it still feels surreal, like watching a play where you're suddenly the main character. Your elaborate hairstyle is a new weight on your head, adorned with delicate combs and pins. Your face is painted with the thick white powder, the final layer of your new persona. Your lips are a shocking slash of red, a symbol of your readiness. You're no longer a girl, you are a professional, a performer in the grand spectacle of Yoshiwara. This is a mainstream historical fact. The debut was a carefully choreographed event, a rite of passage that marked a woman's entry into the world of professional courtesans. Your first days as Yujo are a blur of meetings and introductions. You're no longer just a shadow-serving tea but an active participant. You sit in the zashiki, the main reception room, your posture perfect, your face a calm mask of practiced serenity. You learn to smile with your eyes, to make a man feel like he is the most important person in the room without giving anything away. It's a performance of interest and intrigue, a carefully constructed illusion. You listen to the conversations of the men, the merchants and samurai who frequent this place. You learn about their lives, their troubles, their triumphs. You're a repository of their secrets, a silent, beautiful confidant. The quirkier historical tidbit is that even at this stage, as a young Yujo, you're expected to be an adept conversationalist. You can't just be pretty, you have to be clever. You're taught how to steer a conversation, how to ask just the right questions, and how to tell a story with just the right amount of detail. It's a social art form and you are just beginning to master it. You'll find yourself telling stories about your imagined past, a life of wealth and privilege that is completely fabricated, but the men love to hear it. It's part of the fantasy they are buying. Historians still argue whether the men of the time truly believed these fabricated backstories, or if it was an unspoken game, a part of the ritual of the floating world. Was the illusion for the men, or was it for the women, a way to make their lives feel less like a transaction and more like a romance? For you, it feels like wearing a mask, a beautiful one, but a mask all the same. You're two people now, the girl from the village and this new elegant woman, and the two rarely meet. The first clients you receive are not the high-ranking men who seek the Oiran. They are typically of a lower social or financial standing. They are often less refined, less demanding. They see you as a fresh face, a new flower. You learn to navigate their clumsy advances, their heavy compliments, and their crude jokes. This is a rite of passage, a way to get your feet wet in the profession. You learn the delicate art of refusal, of steering a man's attention away from your body and toward your conversation or your singing. You're selling a dream, not a transaction, and you must maintain that illusion at all costs. The Okusan watches you like a hawk, her eyes judging your every move, her silent disapproval a constant pressure. Remember that feeling of being an invisible ghost in your Kamuro days? That's gone now. You are seen. You are watched. You are a subject of discussion, and not all of it is kind. You are part of the scenery, but you're also a canvas onto which men project their desires, their fantasies and their frustrations. It's a strange and often uncomfortable position to be in. You find a quiet inner strength you didn't know you had, a way of detaching yourself from the situation, of turning yourself into a spectator of your own life. It's a survival mechanism, a way of staying sane in a world that is designed to drive you mad. You're also now responsible for a household of your own, a small group of Kamuro who are now your apprentices. You're their teacher, their guide, and their example. You are now the one who will teach them the songs, the dances, and the rules of the house. You are the one who will correct their posture and their speech. You see the same wide-eyed awe and innocence in their faces that you once had, and a part of you feels a profound sadness for their fate, for the journey you know they are about to embark on. You are a link in a chain, and you have no power to break it. You now spend your days in a waiting game. You wait for clients, you wait for your next lesson, you wait for the next performance. Your life is a series of appointments, a carefully scheduled existence. There is very little spontaneity, very little time that is truly your own. The joke about the apprentice sleeping at night is no longer funny. Your nights are long, and your sleep is short and often interrupted. You're on call, a ready-to-go fantasy, always on stage. You are a Tuso now, a lower-ranking Yujo, but the responsibilities and expectations are still high. You find solace in the small moments of beauty you can still find. The scent of a perfectly brewed cup of tea, the delicate beauty of a cherry blossom branch in a vase, the soft glow of a lantern in the evening. These are the small things that remind you that you are still human, that there is still a world of beauty outside of the transactional one you inhabit. You find yourself clinging to these moments, holding them close to your heart like a secret. You're a young courtesan, and you're starting to learn the true cost of the beautiful life you were promised. The price is not just your labour, it is a piece of your soul, a piece of your past, and a piece of your future. You are a woman in training, learning how to be beautiful and empty, all at the same time. The journey to the top has begun, but you're just starting to realise that the top might be just as lonely as the bottom. Your life as a yujo, an apprentice courtesan, solidifies into a rhythm of waiting. It's not the frantic waiting of a child filled with anticipation and innocent dreams, but the patient, measured waiting of a professional. You're no longer on the fringes of the action, but at its heart, and you learn that the core of this world is an endless, elegant pause. You sit in your room, the soft light of a paper lantern illuminating the space. The rustle of your silk kimono is the only sound you hear. You wait for a message from the Oka-san. You wait for the arrival of a client. You wait for the next lesson. Your days are a carefully structured series of non-events, of stillness and silence. This waiting, you soon discover, is not passive. It's an active performance. Your posture must be perfect, your hands folded in your lap, your expression serene. You're a living painting, a work of art on display. You're ready at a moment's notice to become the witty conversationalist, the talented musician, or the elegant dancer. This is a mainstream historical fact. The life of a courtesan, especially in the higher ranks, was not just about the evening's engagements, but about the entire day's performance of poise and refinement. The illusion of a life of leisure was part of the product. You're now a part of the house's retinue, attending parties and outings with the higher-ranking courtesans. You're seen in public, your face a carefully crafted mask of beauty and composure. You wear a more elaborate kimono, and your hairstyle is more intricate. You're a walking advertisement for the house, a testament to the quality of its training. You're an apprentice, but you're also a promise of what a man could have if he were to rise through the ranks to a woman like you. The quirky historical tidbit is that even your hairstyle was a marker of your rank and status. The higher the rank, the more elaborate and heavy the hairstyle, often taking hours to construct and being maintained for days at a time. The weight of your hair, adorned with dozens of pins and combs, becomes a constant physical reminder of your position in the world. It's a literal burden of beauty. You find yourself walking with a particular gait to accommodate the weight, your neck held perfectly straight, your movements deliberate and slow. Historians still argue whether this relentless focus on beauty and poise was a way for the women to find a sense of self-worth in a world that often stripped them of it, or if it was just another form of control, another chain binding them to their profession. Was the beauty for them, or was it entirely for the men who paid for it? For you, it's a strange mix. You catch a glimpse of yourself in a polished mirror and feel a flicker of pride at the beautiful woman you've become. But that feeling is quickly replaced by the heavy weight of the elaborate hairstyle and the knowledge that this beauty is not truly your own. You start to develop a sense of yourself as an actor in a play. You're playing a part, and the part is a beautiful, elegant and mysterious woman. You learn to detach yourself from the character. When a man compliments you, you accept it with a polite smile, but you don't let the words touch your heart. When a man tells you his secrets, you listen with practiced sympathy, but you don't let the stories affect you. You are a vessel, a beautiful empty vase that men pour their feelings into. It's a survival mechanism you learned instinctively, a way of protecting the small hidden part of you that is still the girl from the village. You're also learning the subtle cruelties of this world. You see how the girls who are not as talented, not as beautiful, or not as popular are treated. They are given less attention, less prestigious clients, and less beautiful clothes. The pressure to succeed is immense. The Oka-san is not cruel in a loud, dramatic way. Her cruelty is in her silent judgment, in the way she will simply stop looking at a girl who has lost her potential. It's a slow, agonizing slide into obscurity and debt that you see happening to others, a fate you're desperate to avoid. Remember the beautiful, distant women you saw on your first day. You are now one of them, but you're seeing the illusion from the inside. You see the rivalries between the different courtesans, the subtle digs, the competition for the best clients and the most favourable attention from the Oka-san. It's not a sisterhood. It's a business, and you are all competitors. The only real alliance you have is with your Kamuro, the young girl who now looks at you with the same awe you once had. You find yourself being kinder to her than you were treated. A small rebellion against the system. A tiny act of humanity in a world that is often dehumanizing. The men who visit the house are a different kind now. They are more refined, more educated. They are interested not just in your beauty, but in your mind. They want to hear your poems, to listen to your music, to have an intelligent conversation. You are learning to read them, to understand their desires, their fears, and their expectations. You're learning that the most powerful thing you have is not your body, but your wit, your charm, and the illusion of a deep and meaningful connection. You're a young Yujo, and you are learning to be a professional. You're learning to be beautiful, to be clever, and to be empty. You're learning the art of the perfect performance, of never letting the mask slip. You're learning that the more successful you are, the more alone you will be. You are moving up the ladder, but you are realizing that the higher you climb, the more dangerous the rungs become. The next step is a big one. It's the transition from apprentice to a full-fledged courtesan. It's the rank of Koshi, and it's the beginning of a whole new level of pressure and expectation. You can feel it coming, a tide of expectation, a current pulling you inexorably toward a fate you can't escape. The years as a Yujo have passed, a blur of practice, smiles, and polite conversation. You have proven yourself to be a valuable asset to the Okiya, and the Okasan's calculating gaze has softened into a look of proprietorial pride. You're no longer an apprentice, but a full-fledged courtesan, a Koshi. The promotion is marked by a new, even more elaborate kimono and a more prestigious room in the house. You have your own formal kamuro, a young girl who looks at you with the same wide-eyed awe you once had. You are a star now, a central figure in this world, and you feel the weight of that responsibility on your shoulders. Your clients are now of a higher caliber. They are not just merchants, but scholars, artists, and wealthy men from outside the quarter who come to Yoshiwara for its refined culture, as much as for its pleasures. They seek not just a physical connection, but an intellectual one. This is a mainstream historical fact. The Koshi was expected to be a woman of great culture and wit, a true companion to men of high standing. You're no longer just a pretty face, but a symbol of the artistic and intellectual vibrancy of the floating world. You have to be able to talk about the latest poetry, the newest theatrical plays, and the philosophical debates of the day. You're an encyclopedia of the floating world's culture, and your wit is your most valuable asset. The quirkier historical tidbit is that the courtesans of this rank were expected to have a deep knowledge of the seasons and the appropriate poetic imagery associated with them. A conversation about a snowy day, for example, would be expected to include a poem about the beauty and transience of winter. You find yourself spending hours memorizing these seasonal poems and their appropriate contexts, a small library of culture stored in your head, ready to be deployed at a moment's notice. It's a strange and beautiful kind of mental servitude. Historians still argue whether this constant need for intellectual performance was a source of empowerment for the women, giving them a form of power and influence they wouldn't have had otherwise, or if it was just another layer of exploitation, another skill to be sold. Did these women find joy in their intellectual pursuits, or were they just a means to an end? For you, it's a complicated mix. You enjoy the challenge of a witty conversation and the beauty of a well-crafted poem, but you also resent the fact that this talent is not truly your own, but a tool to be used for the house's profit. Your life is now a constant performance. From the moment you wake until the moment you fall asleep, you are on. You are always elegant, always witty, always composed. You are a mirror for the men who visit you, reflecting back their own best selves. You make a man feel cleverer, more charming, and more important than he really is. This is the true skill of a courtesan of your rank, and you have become a master of it. You are also learning the more subtle cruelties of the system. The beautiful, elegant kimonos you wear are not yours. They belong to the Okiya, and they are a part of the ever-growing debt you owe. The expensive food you eat, the lavish parties you attend, the very sake you drink, it's all a part of the debt. The debt is a silent, invisible chain that binds you to the house. The more successful you become, the more debt you accrue, a cruel paradox that ensures you can never truly be free. Remember that feeling of being a small cog in a machine? You're no longer a cog. You're a prized possession. You're a jewel in the house's crown. You're presented to clients with a sense of pride, a testament to the Okasan's business acumen. The pressure to maintain this image is immense. The slightest mistake, A moment of weariness, a hint of a slip in your composure, could be seen as a sign of weakness, a crack in the beautiful facade. The other koshi in the house are your rivals, but there is a strange camaraderie born of shared experience. You're all in the same boat, all sailing the same treacherous waters. There's a subtle competition, of course, for the best clients and the most favourable attention, but there is also a shared understanding, a look across a crowded room that says, "I see you, and I know what this is." It's a small, unspoken solidarity in a world of cutthroat competition. You share a joke with one of them, a dry, weary joke about the ridiculousness of a certain client's demands, and you both laugh, a rare, genuine laugh that is quickly stifled and replaced by a professional smile. You are now a part of the quarter's public life. You're seen on the streets during certain events, and your name is known. Men in the streets will point and whisper your name as you pass, a strange and unsettling kind of fame. You are a celebrity in a world that is a closed ecosystem. You are famous, but only within the walls of this gilded cage. Your fame is another chain, another thing that ties you to this place. You have climbed the ladder, and you're starting to realize that the view from the top is not of freedom, but of a larger, more beautiful prison. The next step is the highest rank, the rank of Oiran, and with it comes a whole new level of performance, expectation, and danger. The stage is being set for the grandest act of your life, but you're starting to wonder if it's an act you will ever be able to walk away from. You have reached the pinnacle. The years of rigorous training, the sleepless nights, the endless hours of practice and performance. It has all culminated in this moment. You are now an Oiran, the highest rank of courtesan in all of Yoshiwara. Your name is whispered with reverence and awe, not just within the quarter but throughout all of Edo. Your face, once a simple canvas, is now a masterpiece of powder and paint, a symbol of unattainable beauty and cultured elegance. The weight of your new status is physical. The intricate, multi-layered kimonos, the towering hairstyles adorned with dozens of ornate combs and pins, and the sheer cost of your existence. You are a living work of art, and the art is expensive. Your life is no longer a series of appointments, it is a meticulously choreographed ritual. You do not simply walk to meet a client, you are part of a procession, the Orandoshu, a dazzling spectacle that is a testament to your status and the wealth of your house. The mainstream historical fact is that the Oirandochu was a public event where the highest-ranking courtesans would parade through the streets of Yoshiwara with their entourage, their beauty and prestige on full display for all to see. You're at the centre of this spectacle, a beautiful, slow-moving monument to the floating world's opulence. Your procession is a feast for the senses. You wear a kimono so heavy it takes 2 people to help you put it on, a garment made of the finest silks and intricate embroidery, a single piece of clothing that could feed a village for a year. You wear towering black lacquer sandals, your feet barely visible beneath the layers of silk, and you walk with a deliberate, slow, figure-8 gait that is unique to the Oiran. This walk is a quirky historical tidbit. It was known as the Hachimonji, or figure-8 walk, and it required immense skill and strength to master. You've spent countless hours practicing it, the physical exertion a testament to the mental fortitude required for your role. As you move through the streets, your entourage follows. Your 2 young Kamuro walk beside you, their innocent faces a stark contrast to your painted one. You're flanked by men in fine clothing, your personal attendants and protectors. The street is lined with people, a sea of faces, merchants, samurai, ordinary townspeople, all craning their necks for a glimpse of you. You're a celebrity, a goddess, and you must maintain the illusion. Your face is a serene, emotionless mask. You cannot smile, you cannot laugh, you cannot show a hint of emotion. You're a beautiful, untouchable ideal, a living fantasy. Historians still argue whether the Oirandochu was a form of empowerment for these women, a moment when they were the most revered and respected figures in the city, or if it was the ultimate form of objectification, a public display of the house's most valuable asset. For you, in that moment, it feels like a strange mix of both. There is a thrill in the attention, a sense of power in the awe and reverence you inspire, but there is also a profound loneliness. You're not a person in this moment, you are a symbol. You're an object of beauty, not a human being. Your life inside the house is just as ritualized. You do not meet with clients casually. A man who wishes to see you must first come to the house multiple times, meeting with the lower-ranking courtesans and proving himself worthy of your time and attention. He must spend a great deal of money and show a great deal of respect before he is even allowed to see you. This system of courtship and the tiered approach to securing a meeting with an Oiran is a key part of the culture of Yoshiwara, and it ensured that only the wealthiest and most determined men could afford the honour. When a man finally earns the right to sit in your presence, it is an elaborate affair. You're not seated with him immediately. You make a grand entrance. Your walk across the room a slow, deliberate performance. You do not speak to him at first, only to your young Kamuro who serves the sake. The man must prove his worth again, with witty conversation, a well-told story, or a beautifully crafted poem. Only after this elaborate dance of courtship is complete will you deign to speak to him. It's a game of power, a dance of dominance, and you are expected to win. Remember that feeling of being a beautiful empty vessel. Now you are a beautiful empty throne. You're a queen in a small, self-contained kingdom. You are respected, you are revered, and you are utterly alone. The other courtesans, even the other koshi, look at you with a mix of respect and envy. You have reached the top, but the air is thin up here. You're separated from your peers, from the men you serve, and from the outside world. Your debt to the Okiya is now astronomical. The cost of your kimonos, your elaborate hairstyles, your perfumes, and your attendants are all added to a ledger that has no hope of ever being paid off. You are the house's biggest star, but you're also its greatest possession. You are the embodiment of its success, but you're also its most valuable prisoner. The golden cage you've been living in has now been gilded in diamonds, but it is a cage all the same. You're at the top of the floating world and the view is spectacular, but it's a view of a world you can never truly be a part of. The next step is a deep dive into the hidden realities of this world, the quiet moments that shatter the beautiful illusion. The Oiran Dochu procession, for all its pomp and splendour, is a performance with a physical price. You've mastered the figure-eight walk, the deliberate controlled sway that makes you seem to float above the ground. But the reality is that the weight of the towering black lacquer sandals, the multiple layers of silk kimono, and the heavy ornaments in your hair leave you exhausted. Your feet, hidden beneath the shimmering silks, are bruised and aching from the strain. The walk is not a graceful glide, but a carefully managed balancing act, a subtle struggle against gravity and fatigue. This is a mainstream historical fact. The physical toll of being an Oiran was immense, and the walk itself was a feat of endurance as much as a display of grace. The public spectacle is over, and you are back in the quiet of your room, your face still a mask of white and red, your hair a towering fortress of pins and combs. The attendants carefully remove your garments, piece by agonizing piece, and the relief is a flood of sensation. The physical weight is gone, but the mental weight remains. The constant need to be perfect, to be a living, breathing fantasy, is a pressure that never truly leaves you. Even in the privacy of your own room, you find yourself holding a certain posture, a certain expression. The mask has become a part of your face, and you're not sure you remember how to take it off. You're now at the centre of the quarter's social life. You're a conversationalist, an intellectual, a muse. Men from all walks of life, wealthy merchants, powerful samurai, even a few high-ranking officials from Edo come to see you. They do not come for a simple transaction. They come to bask in your beauty, to listen to your poetry, to engage in witty banter. You are a goddess, and they are your supplicants. This is the quirky historical tidbit. These men would often spend more money on the long courtship and the intellectual pursuit of the Oiran than on any other aspect of their visit. They were buying not just a woman's time, but a sense of their own importance, their own culture and refinement. You're a mirror for their egos, and you learn to polish it to a blinding shine. Historians still argue whether the financial and emotional independence an Oiran could achieve within her own sphere was a genuine form of power or an illusion. Was she truly a figure of authority and influence, or was she just a more expensive and therefore more carefully controlled commodity? For you, the power feels real at times. You can turn a powerful man away with a single polite word. You can make a man's reputation with a compliment or break it with a careless critique. You have a quiet, subtle influence over the men who seek your attention, but it is a power that exists only within the walls of this quarter. Outside, you are a nobody, a woman with no name, no family, and no rights. The glamour of your life is a carefully constructed facade. You live in a beautiful house, You wear the finest silks, and you eat the most exquisite food. But you are not a free woman. Your debt to the house is astronomical, a number so large it's a kind of joke. The more successful you become, the more extravagant your lifestyle must be, and the more debt you accrue. You're an ever-growing investment, and the Okusan has no intention of ever letting you go. You're a prisoner in a golden cage, and the bars are made of silk and diamonds. You're a celebrity, but your fame is a chain, and your luxury is a debt. Remember the girl from the countryside, the one who saw the world for the first time from the back of a broker's cart? She's a distant memory, a ghost that sometimes haunts your dreams. You are a new person now, a woman of poise and power, but a part of you longs for the simplicity of that old life, for the feel of dirt between your toes and the simple rhythm of the seasons. You find yourself looking out a lattice window at the moon, wondering if it looks the same in your old village. It's a quiet, lonely moment, a chink in the armour of your perfect facade. You're also now a mentor, a teacher to the younger courtesans and apprentices in the house. You are the embodiment of their dreams, the person they hope to become. They watch your every move, listen to your every word, and you find yourself taking on the mantle of responsibility with a surprising sense of purpose. You teach them not just the art of the shamisen and the poetry of the masters, but also the subtle art of survival, the quiet way of preserving a piece of yourself in a world that is designed to take it all. You teach them the importance of the mask, of never letting your true feelings show, of creating a beautiful, impenetrable facade. It's a cruel lesson, but it is the most important one. You are an Oiran, a star, a living legend. You have everything a woman in this world could ever want, and yet you have nothing. Your life is a beautiful, empty performance, a meticulously crafted lie that you live every day. The next step is a deeper dive into the reality of that performance, the hidden cruelties and the suffocating rules that govern your every move. The beautiful lie is about to get a little bit uglier. The world of the Oiran is a beautifully constructed illusion, but behind the shimmering silks and painted smiles lies a reality of physical and emotional confinement. The glamour is a gilded cage, and you, the most precious of its inhabitants, are its most carefully guarded prisoner. You don't get to leave the quarter, not for a walk in the park, not to see the cherry blossoms outside the omon, not for anything. The mainstream historical fact is that the women of Yoshiwara were, with very few exceptions, confined to the quarter. The omon you entered so many years ago was a gate that locked you in, not just out. You are a star, but your stage is a very small, very specific piece of land. The life you lead is governed by a set of strict, unyielding rules. Every aspect of your day is scheduled and accounted for. Your sleep is a luxury you rarely get to enjoy, often interrupted by the demands of a late-night client or an early morning preparation for a procession or a social engagement. Your meals are served to you in your room, and you eat alone, a quiet, solitary act in a life that is otherwise constantly in the public eye. You're always on display, always being watched, always being judged. The pressure to maintain a certain image, a certain level of poise, is immense. The quirkier historical tidbit is that even the colours and patterns of your kimonos were regulated by a strict set of rules. The more senior the courtesan, the more ornate and complex the patterns, often reflecting the seasons or a specific house tradition. You couldn't just choose a kimono you liked. You had to wear the one that was deemed appropriate for your rank and your status. Your clothing was not a form of personal expression. It was a uniform, a visual representation of your place in the quarter's hierarchy. It was a beautiful, stunning uniform, but a uniform nonetheless. Historians still argue whether the constant surveillance and control were a necessary evil for the safety of the women, or a purely exploitative tool. Was the confinement a form of protection from a dangerous outside world, or was it a way to ensure the house's investment was never lost? For you, the confinement feels suffocating. You have a view of the outside world, but it's like watching a play from a very distant seat. You see the people, you hear the sounds, but you're not a part of it. You're a beautiful object in a beautiful box, and the box is never opened. The emotional toll of this life is a quiet, insidious poison. You have to be charming, witty, and engaging, but you cannot be vulnerable. You must be a compassionate listener, but you cannot share your own sorrows. You're a repository of other people's feelings, their desires, their secrets, and their grief, but you have no one to share your own with. The men who come to you, they come for the fantasy, the illusion of a perfect woman. and you cannot shatter that illusion with the messy reality of your own feelings. You are a friend, a lover, a confidant, but you are never truly a person. You are an empty space into which men can project their own needs and desires. Remember that joke you shared with the other Koshi? That quiet moment of shared understanding? That is a rare and precious thing now. As an Oiran, you are separated from the other women. You have your own room, your own attendants, your own schedule. You are a star, and stars are often very far apart from each other. You feel a profound sense of loneliness, a quiet ache that no amount of beautiful silk or clever conversation can fill. You are at the top of the ladder, and you are all alone. The physical reality of this life is also a constant presence. The heavy lead-based makeup you wear, for example, is a slow poison. It gives you a beautiful, ghostly white face, but it slowly eats away at your skin, causing blemishes and premature aging. The constant pressure of the tight kimonos, the elaborate hairstyles, the long nights with little sleep, it all takes a toll on your body. The beautiful woman you see in the mirror is a lie, a thin facade over a body that is weary and worn. You are a beautiful, expensive flower, but you're slowly wilting from the inside out. The debt you owe the house is a constant, suffocating presence. It's not a number you can ever hope to pay off. It is a tool of control, a way to ensure that you can never leave. The more money you bring into the house, the more money is spent on your extravagant lifestyle, and the deeper in debt you become. You're a star, a cash cow, and you are tied to the house with a chain of invisible numbers. The more successful you become, the tighter the chain gets. The illusion of freedom and power that you once felt as a Koshi is completely gone now. You are a prisoner, a beautiful, revered and well-cared-for prisoner, but a prisoner nonetheless. You are a celebrity in a gilded cage, and the bars are made of silk, sake, and a debt you can never repay. You have reached the pinnacle, and you're starting to realize that the view from the top is of a very small world, a world you can never leave. The next step is a dangerous one, a step that breaks all the rules, and it's the most human and most foolish thing a woman in your position can do. It's the act of falling in love. You're at the pinnacle of your profession, a woman of immense prestige and beauty, a living work of art. But the beautiful illusion of your life is also a carefully constructed prison. You have a beautiful room, but it's a cell. You have a staff of attendants, but they are your guards. Your fame and your status are not a source of freedom, but a heavier, more restrictive set of chains. The golden cage you've been living in has been polished to a blinding shine, but it is a cage all the same. The mainstream historical fact here is that the higher the rank of a courtesan, the more restricted her movements and social life became, and the more she was confined within the walls of the quarter. Your high status is a source of confinement, not liberty. The rules that govern your life as an Oiran are suffocatingly strict. You can't just receive any client who wants to see you. The courtship ritual is a long, expensive process, designed to weed out all but the wealthiest and most determined men. You have to be wooed with gifts and poetry and lavish parties before a man can even be in your presence. This system of layers is a kind of protection, but it's also a way to maintain the illusion of your unattainability. You're a jewel, and only the most worthy can even hope to glimpse its light. The quirkier historical tidbit is that these rituals were so complex and formalized that a man could spend a fortune on them and still not be granted a single private audience with you. It was a game of status, and you were the prize. Historians still argue whether this system of elaborate courtship was a form of respect for the Oiran, a way of elevating her from a simple prostitute to a cultural icon, or if it was just a clever marketing ploy to increase the value of the house's most precious asset. Was it a sign of reverence or a form of pricing strategy? For you, the endless rituals feel like a kind of ballet, a beautiful repetitive dance that you're forced to perform every day. It's a part of the job, a part of the performance, and you've become a master of it. But a part of you longs for something real, something simple, a moment that isn't scripted and planned. The loneliness of your position is a quiet, constant ache. You're surrounded by people, your attendants, your clients, the other courtesans, but you're also profoundly alone. You're a star, and stars are distant and untouchable. You're not a person to the men who visit you. You are a fantasy, an ideal, a beautiful projection of their desires. You are a work of art, but art doesn't have feelings, doesn't get tired, doesn't get sad. You have to be the perfect companion, the perfect entertainer, the perfect woman, and there is no room for your own humanity in that role. You are a beautiful empty vessel, and you're starting to feel the hollowness of it all. Remember the girl from the village, the one who saw the world with wonder and innocence. She's a distant memory now, a ghost that you sometimes think about late at night, in the quiet moments after a client has left. You are a new person, a person of great poise and elegance, but you're also a person who has lost a part of herself. The beauty of your life is a trade-off, a bargain you didn't even know you were making. You traded your freedom for security, your authenticity for poise, and your humanity for an illusion of perfection. It's a deal that is starting to feel very, very one-sided. The debt you owe to the house is an invisible chain, but its weight is immense. It's a number that grows every day, with every expensive kimono, every elaborate meal, every new pin in your hair. The more famous you become, the more luxurious your life must be, and the deeper you fall into debt. It's a cruel paradox, a trap that is impossible to escape. The Oka-san is not an evil villain in a play. She is a businesswoman, and you are her most valuable asset. She cares for you, she protects you, and she ensures your safety and well-being, but she also ensures that you will never, ever be able to leave. Your success is her profit, and your freedom is a threat to that profit. You are a celebrity in a closed ecosystem. Your fame is real, your prestige is real, but it is a fame and a prestige that exist only within the walls of this quarter. You are a queen in a small kingdom, and your kingdom is a prison. The world outside the Oman is a rumour, a distant memory, a place you can never return to. The illusion of a powerful, independent woman is a beautiful one, but it is an illusion all the same. You are a prisoner of your own success, a captive of your own beauty. This is a life of performance, of pretending to be something you are not. You pretend to be happy, to be fulfilled, to be in control. You are a master of the mask, of never letting your true feelings show. But in the quiet of your room, you feel the weariness, the loneliness, the deep, abiding sadness of a life that is not your own. You're a beautiful, successful woman, but you're also a prisoner. The gilded cage is beautiful, but the bars are still there. The next chapter of this story is the most dangerous one, a story of a human heart rebelling against its cage, a story of love. In the quiet, ritualized rhythm of your life as an Oiran, a single jarring note is introduced. A man. Not just any man, but one who, from the moment he is finally permitted to sit in your presence, feels different. He is not a wealthy merchant, and he does not come from a powerful samurai clan. He is a young man, an apprentice artisan, and his name is something simple and beautiful like Ren. He is not here to flaunt his wealth or to talk of his business. He's here because he has heard of you, and he is captivated. His gifts are not expensive, but they are thoughtful. A small, delicately carved wooden bird he made himself, a beautiful poem he wrote on a simple piece of paper. He treats you not as a fantasy, but as a person, and this, you quickly learn, is the most dangerous thing of all. His visits, at first, are part of the ritual. He must visit the house multiple times, and the Oka-san allows it because his gifts, though not extravagant, are a testament to his devotion, and the story of his love for you is good for business. He is a romantic fool, a character in a play, and the Oka-san believes she can control the narrative. She is wrong. You find yourself looking forward to his visits, to the quiet moments of genuine conversation. He doesn't ask you about politics or business. He asks you about your day. He talks to you about his work, about the beautiful things he's creating with his hands. He talks about the world outside, the world you're no longer a part of, and in his words, you get a glimpse of a different life, a life you had long forgotten. This is the forbidden love story that is a mainstream historical fact in the lore of Yoshiwara. Tales of a courtesan's love for a man who could not afford her freedom were a common and tragic theme. These relationships were strictly forbidden as they threatened the entire economic model of the quarter, which was built on the premise of a courtesan belonging to the house, not to a man. Your debt to the Okiya is a financial chain, but this love is a deeper, more profound kind of threat. It threatens to make you a person again, and that is something the quarter cannot afford. The quirky historical tidbit is that when a courtesan fell in love with a man, she would sometimes begin to wear his chosen colour in a small part of her kimono or her hair ornament, a subtle signal that was understood by the other women in the quarter and by her love, but often went unnoticed by the men who came to see her. It was a secret language of love, a small rebellion in a world that allowed for none. You find yourself one day wearing a small ribbon the colour of his favourite stone, a tiny, secret smile on your face. Historians still argue whether these love stories were ever truly authentic, or if they were a kind of elaborate performance, a way for the courtesan to create a sense of romance and freedom in a life that had none. Was this love real, or was it another part of the beautiful lie? For you, the answer is a complicated one. You have been trained your whole life to be a performer, to create an illusion of love and passion. But with him, with Ren, it feels different. It feels real. It feels like your heart, a muscle you had long thought was dead, has suddenly started to beat again. Your life becomes a dangerous balancing act. You are an Oiran, a woman of immense poise and control, but a part of you is a fool in love, a girl who dreams of a life outside the walls of the quarter. You meet him in secret, a rare and precious moment stolen from the watchful eyes of the Okasan and your attendants. You walk with him in a small enclosed garden, your hands touching for a brief electric moment. You talk about a future that is impossible, a life together in a small house, a life of simplicity and love. It's a beautiful fantasy, and it's a dangerous one. The danger is not just for you, it's for him too. A man who falls in love with an Oiran and tries to steal her away from the quarter is a threat to the entire system. He could be beaten, or worse. The Okasan and the other men in the quarter have a vested interest in keeping the illusion of your unattainability alive. You're not just a woman, you are an economic asset, and an emotional entanglement is a threat to the bottom line. You're a prize, and he is a thief, and you are both playing a very dangerous game. Remember the debt you owe the house, the invisible chain that binds you. That chain now has a name: freedom. To be with Ren, you would have to be free, and to be free you would have to pay off a debt that is astronomical, a debt that is, in essence, a life sentence. You know this. He knows this. But the hope, the tiny, foolish hope of a life together, is a powerful and intoxicating drug. You are a woman who has never had a choice, never had a dream that was truly her own, and now, for the first time, you have both. And the cost of this choice, of this dream, is terrifying. You are an Oiran in love, a contradiction in terms, a beautiful, tragic impossibility. Your heart has betrayed your training, your duty, and your safety. You're no longer just an elegant work of art. You are a person, a woman with a beating heart and a desperate, dangerous hope. And in a world that is a performance, this kind of authentic emotion is a rebellion. The stage is set for a tragedy, and you are playing the lead role, the debt. That's the word that haunts your dreams and punctuates your waking hours. It's a silent, suffocating presence, a number you don't even know, but feel in the weight of every expensive kimono, in the shine of every ornament in your hair, in the cost of every lavish meal. Your love for Ren is a fire, a beautiful and terrifying warmth. But the debt is the cold, unyielding iron of the chains that bind you. It is a mainstream historical fact that a courtesan's debt to her Okiya was virtually insurmountable. The more successful she became, the more lavish her lifestyle had to be, and the more her debt grew. It was a life sentence, a contract of servitude disguised as a career. You and Ren know this. You both understand that the freedom to be together is not just an emotional fantasy, but a financial impossibility. Your debt is not just the initial sum your parents received, but a constantly growing number that includes the cost of your food, your training, your clothing, your attendance, and the general upkeep of your status as an Oiran. The Okasan is not a monster. She is a shrewd businesswoman. She's invested a fortune in you, and she expects a return on that investment. You're not a person to her. You're a prized asset, and assets do not get to fall in love and walk away. Your stolen moments with Ren become more precious and more dangerous. You meet in the small enclosed garden behind the house, a tiny slice of nature that feels like a vast, limitless world in your moments together. You talk about the debt, about the impossibility of it all. He is a simple artisan, not a wealthy merchant. He has saved every penny he can, but his savings are a pittance compared to the astronomical sum you owe. You both know it's a hopeless situation, a tragic play you're both starring in, but the hope, the tiny, fragile hope of a life together, is a powerful and intoxicating drug. The quirky historical tidbit here is that there was a legal process by which a man could buy a courtesan out of her contract. It was called misage or danakum, and it involved not just paying off her debt, but also a hefty fee to the Okiya as a form of severance. This was a rare and expensive affair, usually only undertaken by a wealthy patron who wanted to make the woman his official mistress. The money was not just for the house, but was also often used to throw a massive celebration to mark the occasion. For a man like Wren, it's a financial Everest he has no hope of ever climbing. Historians still argue whether the concept of mis-age was a genuine path to freedom, or just another way to maintain the illusion of a choice while keeping the vast majority of courtesans locked into their contracts. Was it a rare, shining light of hope, or just a clever trick to keep the women from rebelling? For you, the idea of being bought out of your contract feels both like a dream and a nightmare. A part of you longs for the freedom it represents, but another part of you is horrified by the idea of being owned, of simply trading one master for another. The emotional toll of this secret life is immense. You are an Oiran, a woman of immense poise and control, but your heart is a tangled mess of hope and despair. You find yourself becoming more withdrawn, more distant from your clients. Your witty conversation is a little less witty, your songs a little less heartfelt. You're a divided person, one part of you a polished, perfect professional, the other a lovesick girl who can only think of a life she can never have. The Okasan notices. Her cold, calculating gaze becomes more frequent and more piercing. She knows something is wrong, and she's starting to watch you with a wary eye. Remember that feeling of being a beautiful empty vessel. That's gone now. You are filled with an emotion so powerful it threatens to shatter you. You are filled with love, and in this world, love is a dangerous poison. It makes you weak, it makes you careless, and it makes you a threat to the entire system. You're a woman with a secret, and the secret is love, and the love is a crime. The pressure mounts. Wren, in his foolish, beautiful love for you, begins to do something desperate. He starts to gamble, to borrow money from dangerous people, all in the vain hope of somehow, some way, making enough money to buy your freedom. He's a man who is willing to risk everything for you, and a part of you is terrified by his recklessness, and another part of you is deeply, profoundly moved. He is a fool, but he is your fool. You are an Oiran in love, a beautiful, tragic impossibility. Your love for Wren has given you a glimpse of a world outside your gilded cage, a world of simplicity and genuine affection. But it has also made you acutely aware of the bars of your cage, of the invisible chains of debt that will never, ever be broken. You are living a beautiful lie, but your heart is telling a different story, and in a world of performance, that kind of honesty is a death sentence. The stage is being set for a final tragic act, and the curtain is about to rise on a story of love, betrayal and despair. The secret love you nurtured in the quiet of your beautiful prison has a cost, a debt far more insidious than the one you owe the house. It has a name, and its name is betrayal. Wren, in his desperate, foolish love for you, has been gambling, borrowing money from the wrong people in a vain attempt to buy your freedom. He has been a fool, but he was your fool, and you loved him for it. But love, in this world, is a weakness, a vulnerability that is exploited with a chilling precision. You come to learn, in a quiet, brutal conversation with the Okasan, that Wren's efforts have not gone unnoticed. In his recklessness, he was approached by a rival house, a rival courtesan, and he was offered a deal to betray you. The quirky historical tidbit here, and one that gives you a cold, sick feeling, is that it was not uncommon for courtesans to have rivals, and the competition between houses was fierce. A rival could use a lovesick suitor as a pawn, using him to spread rumours, to embarrass a rival courtesan, or to simply cause a scandal that would diminish her value. It was a vicious game, and you were a pawn in a larger conflict. Wren, your beautiful, simple fool, was used as a tool to hurt you. He was offered a place in the rival house, a beautiful courtesan to call his own, and a small sum of money, a pittance compared to your debt, but an amount that felt like a fortune to him. Historians still argue whether these betrayals were acts of genuine malice, or simply a desperate attempt by a man to survive in a world that was designed to destroy him. Was Wren a bad man, or was he a product of a cruel system, a victim of his own foolish love? For you, the answer is a simple, devastating one. He betrayed you. He took the money. He chose a different path. The beautiful, fragile dream of a life with him is shattered, and the pieces are sharp and unforgiving. Your heart, that muscle you had thought was dead and then brought back to life by a simple act of love, is now broken. The wound is deep and it is personal. You were trained your whole life to be a professional, to be detached, to be a mask of poise and elegance. You were taught to never let your true feelings show, to never be vulnerable. But with Ren, you broke all the rules. You let your heart show, and it was used as a weapon against you. The pain is not just a heartbreak, it's a profound shame, a deep, abiding anger at yourself for being so foolish. The mainstream historical fact here is that a courtesan, once she was no longer a valuable asset, was often cast aside. Her status, her fame, her beauty, it was all conditional. It was based on her ability to generate income for the house. A scandal, a heartbreak, a public display of emotion. Any of these things could diminish her value and lead to her demotion. You are now a liability. Your sorrow, your anger, your broken heart, it's all a bad look. It's a flaw in the perfect facade, a crack in the beautiful vase. The Okasan, once so proud of you, now looks at you with cold, calculating disapproval. She has lost faith in her star, in her most valuable asset. The men who once vied for your attention, the men who once came to you for your wit and your poetry, now hear the rumours. They hear of your heartbreak, your vulnerability, and they are no longer interested. They want the fantasy, the unattainable goddess, not heartbroken woman. The demand for your time, for your company, for the illusion of a perfect companion begins to wane. Remember that beautiful empty vessel you once were. You long to be that again. You long to be a woman with no heart, a woman who cannot be hurt. But it's a feeling you cannot simply turn off. The pain is a living thing, a shadow that follows you through your days and your nights. You try to perform, to be the Oiran you once were, but your voice is a little less steady, your smile a little less genuine. The mask is cracking, and the world is starting to see the shattered pieces underneath. You are no longer an Oiran. You are a demoted courtesan, a woman who has lost her way, a woman who has lost her value. The Okasan, in a quiet, cold conversation, tells you that you will be moved to a smaller room. Your attendants will be reassigned. Your kimonos will be given to a younger, more promising courtesan. Your status, the thing you worked for your whole life, is gone. You are no longer a star. You are a falling star, a woman on a steep and tragic decline. The fall is swift and brutal, and you feel the ground rushing up to meet you. The fall from grace is not a sudden, dramatic event, but a slow, agonizing slide. The elegant facade you maintained for so long begins to crumble, and the beautiful woman you were is replaced by a weary, heartbroken shadow. The small, prestigious room you once occupied is given to a younger, more promising courtesan, and you are moved to a smaller, less opulent space in a more obscure part of the house. The rustle of your silk kimonos is replaced by the quiet hum of a lesser world, a world of lower expectations and fewer luxuries. Your name, once whispered with reverence, is now spoken with a mix of pity and scorn. You're no longer an Oiran, but simply a Yujo, a woman on the downward slope of a career that is as brutal as it is beautiful. Your clients are different now. They are not the wealthy, refined men who came for witty conversation and poetry. They are often rougher, less patient, and less interested in the intellectual side of your training. You are no longer a muse, a goddess, but a commodity, and the transaction is more direct and less shrouded in the beautiful veil of ceremony. This is a mainstream historical fact. A courtesan's career was often short-lived, and a tragic decline in status and earning potential was a common occurrence, often due to age, illness, or a loss of favour. You are now a living testament to that tragic reality. The quirkier historical tidbit is that as a courtesan's career declined, so did the number and variety of her ornamental combs and hairpins. An Oiran would have dozens of elaborate pieces, but a lower-ranking Yujo might only have a few simple ones. The subtle change in your hairstyle is a public visual marker of your failure, a constant physical reminder of what you have lost. You find yourself touching the few remaining pins in your hair, a quiet, mournful ritual, a way of remembering the woman you once were. Historians still argue whether the decline of a courtesan's career was a tragic but inevitable part of the system, or if it was a deliberate act of control by the house, a way of ensuring that no one woman became too powerful or too independent. Was your downfall a result of your personal heartbreak, or was it a calculated decision by the Okasan to maintain the balance of power within the house? For you, the answer feels like both. Your heartbreak was the catalyst, but the system was always designed to allow for your fall. You're a lesson, a cautionary tale for the younger, more hopeful apprentices in the house. The heartbreak of Ren's betrayal is a wound that never truly heals. It's a quiet, cold ache that lives in your chest. You find yourself reliving the moments you spent with him, the stolen conversations, the brief touch of hands, the foolish, dangerous dreams you shared. You see him sometimes, from a distance, walking with his new love, a rival courtesan whose star is now on the rise. He looks happy, and the sight of his happiness is a physical pain, a sharp, cold jab in your heart. You're angry at him, but you're angrier at yourself for being so foolish, for believing in a love that could never be real, for allowing yourself to be vulnerable in a world that is designed to destroy vulnerability. Remember that beautiful empty vessel you once were? You are no longer empty. You're filled with a toxic mix of grief, anger, and a profound sense of shame. You're a woman who made a mistake, a woman who broke the rules, and you are now paying the price. The beauty of your life is gone, replaced by a grey, monotonous existence. The days and nights blur into a single, seamless memory of weariness and regret. You're no longer a star, but a part of the backdrop, a face in the crowd. The debt you owe the house, once an abstract, astronomical number, now feels like a concrete, physical chain. It's a chain that binds you to this house, to this life, to this world. You have no hope of ever paying it off. The money you earn now is less, and the expenses of your life, though simpler, are still tallied and added to the ledger. You're a woman who is trapped, and the walls of your cage feel more real and more suffocating than ever before. You're no longer a prized asset, but a worn-out tool, a utensil that is used and then put away. The other courtesans, the ones who were once your rivals and your peers, now look at you with a mix of pity and a kind of grim satisfaction. They see in you a vision of their own possible future, a cautionary tale of what happens when a woman breaks the rules. They are kind to you, in a distant, pitying way, but they are also careful to maintain their distance. They're afraid of your failure, of the bad luck that seems to follow you. You're a ghost, a living memory of a tragedy that is a part of this world. You're a woman in decline, a fallen star in the floating world. The air you breathe is heavy with regret, and the future feels like an endless grey expanse of servitude and loneliness. The beauty, the art, the wit, the poise, it was all a performance, and the performance is over. You're now living in the quiet, sad aftermath, a woman who has lost her profession, her love, and herself. The next chapter is the final one, a story of the final years of a woman who was once a goddess, and who is now just a ghost. The years that follow your demotion are a slow, grinding descent into obscurity. The beauty of the floating world, once a source of pride and wonder, now feels like a cruel joke. The polished wood floors feel cold beneath your feet, and the scent of incense is a constant, suffocating reminder of a life you once had. You're no longer the star, but a background player, a forgotten face in a bustling, unforgiving city. The elegant kimonos are gone, replaced by simple, worn garments that speak of a lower station. Your face, once a perfect porcelain mask, is now a map of quiet sorrow and premature aging, the lead-based powder having finally taken its toll. You are now a lower-ranking Yujo, and your life is a monotonous cycle of waiting and a more direct form of servitude. The men who come to you are not looking for witty conversation or poetry. They are not interested in the intellectual prowess that was once your most valuable asset. They are looking for a simple transaction, and you, a woman who was once a goddess, are now just a means to an end. This is a mainstream historical fact. The life of a lower-ranking courtesan was often one of hardship and anonymity, a stark contrast to the opulence of the higher ranks. The social and economic gap between an Oiran and a simple Yujo was a chasm, and you have fallen into it. The quirkier historical tidbit, and one that is a cruel irony, is that as a courtesan's status declined, she would often be required to wear her hair in a simpler, less elaborate style. The removal of the heavy ornate hairpins and combs, once a symbol of your high rank, is now a symbol of your failure, a constant physical reminder of your fall from grace. You find yourself looking at the younger apprentices with a mixture of pity and a kind of grim jealousy. They are on the upward slope you once travelled, full of hope and naive dreams, and you know the bitter reality of the destination. Historians still argue whether the quiet endurance of these women in their final years was a sign of strength or a complete psychological defeat. Did they find a way to make peace with their fate, or were they simply too broken to fight anymore? For you, the answer feels like a mixture of both. There are moments of quiet peace, moments when you find a simple beauty in the world, in the way the light hits a wall or the sound of a bird outside your window. But those moments are quickly replaced by a profound sense of loss, a deep, abiding sorrow for the life you once had and the person you once were. The heartbreak of Ren's betrayal is no longer a sharp, fresh wound. It is a dull, chronic ache that is a part of who you are now. You think of him less, not because the pain is gone, but because the memory of a love that was a lie is too painful to bear. You have closed that part of your heart, sealed it off, and it is a place you no longer visit. The girl who once fell in love is a ghost, a beautiful, tragic memory that you have to bury in order to survive. Remember that feeling of being a beautiful, empty vessel. You're no longer empty. You are filled with the weight of your past, the heavy, suffocating memory of your failures and your heartbreaks. You're a woman who has lived a full and tragic life in a very small space, and the memories of that life are a constant presence. You're a living testament to the cruelty of the floating world, a quiet, mournful reminder that the beauty and the glamour are a facade, a thin veil over a brutal, unforgiving reality. The debt you owe the house is still there, an invisible chain that binds you to this place. It is a debt that you will never pay off, a life sentence that will only end with your death. You are a woman who is trapped, and the walls of your cage feel more real and more suffocating than ever before. You're no longer a valuable asset, but a forgotten piece of old furniture, a utensil that is used and then put away. You have a purpose, but it is not a purpose that brings you pride or joy. It is a purpose of survival. You are a woman who is fading. Your beauty is gone. Your wit is a distant memory, and your voice is a little less steady. You're a ghost, a living memory of a tragedy that is a part of this world. The younger apprentices look at you not with awe or envy, but with a quiet fear. They see in you a vision of their own possible future, a cautionary tale of what happens when a woman breaks the rules and is no longer beautiful. You're a warning, a shadow on the wall, a whisper of a life that is as tragic as it is beautiful. You are living out your final years in obscurity and poverty, a woman who was once a goddess and who is now just a ghost. The final chapter of your story is about to be written, a chapter of quiet farewells and final rest. The final years of your life are a quiet grey whisper after the tumultuous roar of your past. The vibrant colours of the floating world have faded to sepia tones, and the music that once filled the air is a distant, half-remembered melody. You are a shadow of the woman you once were, a living ghost in a city that has long since moved on. Your face, once a canvas of flawless white, is now etched with the lines of age and hardship. Your hands, once trained for delicate calligraphy and the graceful pluck of a shamisen, are now gnarled and tired. You're no longer a star but a part of the scenery, a quiet, forgotten footnote in a grand and tragic story. You've been moved to a small, humble room in the most obscure part of the Okia, a space for women whose usefulness has passed. The room is bare, save for a worn sleeping mat and a small chest of your remaining belongings. The rustle of silk is a distant memory, replaced by the rough feel of simple cotton. You're no longer a valuable asset, but a burden, a mouth to feed, a body to clothe. The Okasan, now an old woman herself, looks at you with a kind of grim, quiet sadness. You are a reminder of a bad investment, a beautiful flower that bloomed and then withered, and a part of her mourns the loss of the money she spent on you. The mainstream historical fact here is that many courtesans who did not manage to be bought out of their contracts or retire would live out their lives in obscurity and poverty within the quarter. Their fame and their beauty were fleeting, and their final years were often a stark and brutal contrast to the opulence of their youth. You're now living that brutal reality. Your life is no longer a performance. It is a quiet, monotonous existence of survival. The quirkier historical tidbit is that some of these older, forgotten courtesans would be given the task of teaching the new, young apprentices the basic skills, the simple tunes on the shamisen, a proper way to hold a teacup. You are now a teacher, a quiet, weary guide for girls who are full of the same hope and naive dreams you once had. You teach them not with the cold, calculating precision you were taught with, but with a quiet, mournful kindness. You see in their young faces a reflection of your own past, a beautiful and tragic mirror, and you feel a deep, abiding sadness for the journey they are about to embark on. Historians still argue whether the stories of these forgotten courtesans, their final quiet years, were a form of tragedy or a kind of grace. Was it a sad end to a beautiful life? Or was it a quiet, final act of a woman who had finally found a measure of peace after a lifetime of performance? For you, it is a mixture of both. There is a sadness in the loss of your beauty, your fame, and your wit. But there is also a quiet, gentle peace in the simplicity of your life now. You're no longer performing. You're no longer wearing a mask. You're just a woman. A weary, tired woman who is finally allowed to simply be. The heartbreak of Ren's betrayal and the pain of your fall from grace are now a part of the past. A quiet, distant echo. The girl who once fell in love is a ghost, and the Oiran she became is a memory. You are a new person now, a woman who has endured and survived. You find a quiet, simple joy in the small things. The warmth of a cup of tea on a cold day, the feel of the sun on your face through a lattice window, the simple rhythm of a song you once knew. These small moments are now your entire world, and they are enough. Remember that beautiful empty vessel you once were. It is no longer empty. It is filled with the wisdom of a life lived, the quiet strength of a woman who has endured every hardship. You are a woman who has lost everything and has, in the process, found herself. You have lost your name, your home, your family, your love, your status, your beauty, and your youth. But you have gained a kind of quiet, profound peace that you would never have found in the opulence of your youth. You are a woman who has reached the end of her story, and the end is not a roar but a whisper. The final years are a quiet farewell to a world you were never truly a part of. You watch the procession of the new Oiran, a young, beautiful woman who is full of the same hope you once had. You see her walk with the same slow, figure-eight gait, her face a serene, emotionless mask. And you know the beautiful, tragic and lonely journey she is on. You are a ghost, a living memory of a tragedy that is a part of this world, and you are finally at peace. The sun sets on a long, full and tragic life, and you are ready for a final quiet rest. The story's over, and the woman who was once an Oiran is finally just a woman, a quiet whisper in the wind. And with that final whisper, the curtain falls on our story. The world of Yoshiwara, a place of impossible beauty and profound sadness, fades into the quiet of the night. Her name, her face, her very existence, all of it is lost to the pages of history, a quiet, forgotten footnote. But her story, a story of a young girl's struggle against a world that was designed to break her, is a story that, in some small way, we can all learn from. It's a story of a life lived on a stage, a life of beautiful lies and tragic truths. And in the end, it's a story about a woman who, in losing everything, found a quiet, simple peace. Now, let the hum of your fan and the quiet of your room lull you into a soft, restful sleep. The stories of the past are over, and the journey is at an end.